I'd like to tell a short story. When Bob Dratch measured Kundalini and bliss, he measured a microwave frequency based on adenosine triphosphate, ATP, the common denominator of all cellular metabolism. And when you scan for that, you can measure bliss in the microwave, meaning that there's a certain bandwidth in the microwave that should be exclusively reserved for biology. Of course, it is not. So it isn't that these high frequencies are inherently evil. It's just like anything. When they're used in a way which does not embed or produce fractality, they create death. And, cell phone microwave is extremely deadly, particularly deadly to Kundalini and bliss. So I strongly caution against using microwave and cell phone devices. Certainly keep your cell phone out of your aura whenever you can. And when you must have it in your aura, only use a headphone piece. Never put the damn thing near your ear. These things are dangerous and cancerous and poisonous. And, there's even road signs in Spain warning pregnant women to keep these cell phones off their bodies. I mean, it's very serious.
How about Wi-Fi then? Signals that we can't block ourselves from as easily as with our own cell phone.
I've noticed that the low-power Wi-Fi seems to be less destructive, but high-power Wi-Fi is very insidious, and I think that it's something to really look out for.
Do you know what the main difference is between low and high-powered? Is that just the speed of it, or what are you talking about?
The power densities and the frequencies involved, I believe it's mostly actually literally power density. Now, there's something called spread spectrum technologies, which are much less destructive of the aura, but they're much less used these days in Wi-Fi technologies. But I noticed, for example, the higher power Wi-Fi in the UK would drive me absolutely nuts. I mean, my Kundalini just drove me nuts. And so I could immediately tell that environment.
Really, that's interesting. Right. And what's your kind of what's your reaction to it? Do you get depressed or physically low, or how is what is the symptoms, if you don't mind explaining?
Nervous and jerky, kind of jumpy.
Really?
Whereas I'm sitting here now, and the Wi-Fi box that I'm using at this moment is the French orange.fr, and actually it's a lower power. It only goes about 100 feet, and I don't find it too bad here. But I do know that I am better, particularly in dream states, with it off.
Yeah. That's interesting. And how about the hertz and the voltage from our electrical systems? Is there a difference between the States and Europe, for instance? Over here in Europe, we have about 220. Is that anything that's damaging in regards to health that you know?
Extremely dangerous. In Europe, we have 50 cycle. In the States, they have 60 cycle. The frequency is the issue mostly. The transformers create nausea. It's just that simple. So all these devices you have in your house that have transformers on them, you really need to unplug the damn things. Best thing you can do is turn the main power off in your house when you go to bed, but at least keep the transformers, only the ones you absolutely need, plugged in, and try to reduce the number that you need. Electrosmog is extremely damaging to your health. Just let me give you a simple example. I was teaching in Geneva a couple of years ago, and there were two people teaching with me, and we each had a computer and one other little hard disk with us, so there were 6, count them, 6 of those damn little nauseating transformers plugged in the front of the lecture hall. And every single lady in that room got nausea and could not digest. We unplugged those 6 damn little transformers, and everyone in the room went, These things are sickening. They're nauseating. They're disgusting. They're evil. They're unhealthy. And you need to know that. So what you need to do is drastically reduce the amount of electrosmog that you have in your house, and then put all of the poisonous shit in one corner, and you live in the opposite corner.
Right. Huh.
Now, there are devices, these Faraday blankets and other things, which do help to some extent.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Faraday, because I wanted to ask you regarding a Faraday cage then, because before we looked at this idea about putting seeds into an aluminum cage, for instance. How about the Faraday cage? Is that equally worse then, or as bad then, or what's the score with that?
The Faraday cage is not healthy in the sense that it does not invite in a bioactive electric field. It simply keeps out some of the poison. And notably, it keeps out none of the capacitance. So capacitive coupling goes right through the damn thing. So a Faraday cage is largely useless, truthfully. I mean, it will keep out certain electromagnetic frequencies, but all capacitive coupling and high frequencies makes it right through. So the damn thing pretty much is not going to help your health much. And the ultimate goal here actually is not isolation, but rather embeddability. So unfortunately or fortunately, there's no excuse, no substitute for nature.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely right. And I guess that we're adding problems upon problems in one way. We're trying to fix one thing, but then another thing pops up that was kind of unexpected, and we get a new symptom of that, and that's very unfortunate in that sense. And I totally agree with you. But in that regard, do you also feel that if the body gets enough rest, let's say during nighttime, where we can recuperate, our nervous system can get back in order, if you know what I mean, do we still have some kind of resistance against this, meaning that we can actually take it for a while? It's not good, I understand that, but it might not kill us if we spend a few hours in front of the computer each day, but we make sure to take a proper rest from it and so forth. What do you think?
Well, that's true, and that reinforces the idea of using some skilled geobiology to actually diagnose your environment, get a tri-field meter, measure the amount of electrosmog, both electrostatic and magnetic in your environment, inductive, and do something about it. So yeah, I suggest don't just guess, measure something and take action. But the bottom line is, let me give you another little example. If you're standing right now on a concrete floor, chances are your feet feel tired. Whereas if you're standing on a wood floor, chances are your feet feel good. The reason your feet feel tired on that concrete floor is not the concrete. Actually, it's paramagnetic. There's limestone. It's good stuff. The evil is the steel rebar in the damn stuff, which is absolutely poisonous. So the reason your feet feel like shit when you're standing on concrete floor is because the steel rebar is sucking your capacitance. So this is telling you what you need to do to actually be in an environment to stay alive. You need to be in an environment that's phase conjugate, made of biological materials. It's simple.
It is very simple. It makes absolutely sense to me in that regard. How about wearing some of the stuff, metal or iron, if we talk about jewelry, earrings, even belt buckles or buttons made of the thing, iron or some kind of metal? Do you think that that's harmful as well to us?
Yeah, very. Actually, the Sufis had it correct. When you go to your Lord, you go like the lover. You take off your damn jewelry. Now, actually, the phase conjugate materials like the gold and palladium can actually help your aura a little bit, just like the right gemstones can make your aura like the breastplate. But and even them, they need cleansing sometimes. But for most people in Western culture, the things they wear on their body is not phase conjugate. The metals on your body is killing you. Anything synthetic on your body is killing you. Just, don't take my word for it. Learn kinesiology, do some muscle testing. And by the way, you can measure the muscle test with that heart coherence because it's the same phenomenon. Muscle strength is heart coherence. So you put your aluminum little wristwatch on that has a little battery on, which is absolutely fatal for your aura. You take that off your wrist and your arm strength just got 10 times stronger. Think about it for a minute. You'd never wear any metal on your aura again.
Well, go ahead.
You even rush to take the metal change out of your pocket. Get the metal out of your aura. It's very important. You want to live with vital phase conjugate material only in your aura so your aura can grow, because otherwise you die. And your aura growth is absolutely fractal. That's why, polyester is the worst. Cotton is, it's okay, but it's not wonderful because the DNA has been monocultured and treated like shit. Whereas you've got some hemp in your aura, this DNA is vital and happy, and your aura goes, whoopee.
Well, so in regards to clothes, we can say the same thing there then, that the genetically modified monocultured cotton that many people are wearing is not that great. And in regards to that, would you recommend people to buy some stuff out of hemp instead, organically grown hemp or something like that?
Yeah, well, obviously there's a hierarchy of these things. Polyester and everything synthetic is worst, and cotton is sort of in the middle. Then much better would be some vital threads like hemp. Actually, we have a whole new industry that we've started, and if you'd like to join us and be partners, please send me an email. It's called the fractal clothing industry. And, if you put phase conjugate materials, phase conjugate adhesives, and phase conjugate trace mineral sprays, you can make clothing that causes your aura to grow.
That's very interesting. Absolutely. And I totally agree with you in regards to the watch. I never were comfortable with a watch. I haven't worn one in years, and it was just something about it. I didn't understand why at that point, but just made me feel so much better to take it off,
That's right. So it's just you were hearing your own intuition tell you what your aura needs.
That's probably right. Well, exactly. Well, I mean, there's so many different areas that you've been studying, Dan, and that you're researching. And what are some of the projects that you're involved in right now? Or you are just, I guess it feels to me that your work are obviously continuous. You've started at one end, so to speak, and you're branching out into all these different fields because, as we all know, by this stage, everything is connected, meaning that every single thing is important and will come up on the radar eventually anyway. But is there something specific that you're doing right now, or lectures, for instance, that you're going to give here in the upcoming future?
Yeah, we have our South France Grail Conference coming up. We have the Paris on Science of Alchemy next week, and, the usual. But I would like to mention one thing. We started our Calling All Angels project with the John Dee story in Prague conference a couple weeks ago with Vincent Bridges. I'd like to tell your listeners a little bit about the Ophanim Enochian Calling All Angels Survive the 2012 story, if I may, just briefly.
Sure.
You see, when Shakespeare went to Prague under a code name as a spy with John Dee, they were learning that as this end of the age solar maximum approached, the only plasma beings with enough inertia to steer the solar wind would be what you call angels. Actually, it's the Ophanim, the Enochian, the High, the Patal, they're called, the Valnapa, or the Adawi, many names. And John Dee was taught with this show stone that contained these shadows of the charged domain with the Ophanim Enochian alphabet letters, which are the symmetry elements of angel bodies as plasma fields, which became the language Greek, by the way, and the highest form of magic on earth today, Order of the Golden Dawn. And incidentally, Hertog's book, The Keys of Enoch, doesn't have an Enochian key in the whole book. He had the classic Seraphim line, but none of the Enochian Ophanic, but he's a sweet guy. But anyway, the Ophanim Enochian were basically trying to tell us, which was the high ancestors of the Anunnaki, the winged dragons, as it were. Mm-hmm. They were trying to say, look, if you learn this sequence of charge symmetry operations in these visualizations, the high alphabets, the high order magic, the Ophanim Enochian, you can become part of the plasma field of stars actively, which is the physics of why the Ophanim Enochian alphabet was used to make the movie Stargate. So here you got the solar wind coming. Now, who's big enough to get their aura out there and steer that thing? And yet, if nobody's steering it, we are toast. Now, John Dee spent his whole life learning this Ophanim Enochian alphabet, these angel calls. And you know what? He was chicken to try it. He never even tried the damn stuff because it was so powerful. So Vincent Bridges, vincentbridges.com, you've seen him on all the Nostradamus shows on the History Channel. And we've been working together for many years. He edited my second book, Alphabet of the Earth Heart. Mm-hmm. He is probably I think the world's expert on the Ophanim Enochian, and he and I have come up with this plan to gather groups of people to learn to actually call the angels in the high, serious, disciplined Ophanim Enochian angel call teaching, which is really where Golden Dawn was going before they had sort of lost the physics. So I personally have been there when these sequences of Enochian calls, as they were, when they called storms the size of continents. I've been there, I've watched it, I know it works, and I know the physics of how it works. And I suggest that the angels are correct to consider us drunk for not calling them. So I'm suggesting that people get interested in the symmetry elements of the plasma beings we call angel, which are the size of galaxies, truly, and start learning that in their own aura, which is the Ophanim Enochian, the angel physics, these Ophanim Enochian calls, which John Dee was trying to teach to Shakespeare, which is why he wrote all his plays about alchemy, which is about fusion, black hole making. Anyway, if you're interested in this project, please contact us, either myself, Dan Winter at goldenmean.info, or vincentbridges.com. So there you go. There's a little invite to angel science.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. Well, we had Lon Milo Duquette with us not too long ago talking about Enochian magic, and that has a tie in there as well. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know that much about it, but there you go. For people who are interested, can contact Dan or Vincent for more about that. Well, I think we can begin, Dan, to round things up here for this time. I really enjoyed having you on. It's always interesting hearing from people like you who are involved in so many different areas and so many different projects at the same time. And beyond that, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with before we end for this time?